Hello again to all subscribers and listeners of this channel. This is Obsidian Radio, and today this video shall be Why Evolution is Bullshit Part 4, Bad Arguments Made by Evolutionists, Number 5, A through N. And I say again, evolution is the hypothesis, masquerading as a theory that people believe is a fact. Now we are journeying into the really bad and fallacious arguments that are frequently made by evolutionists whenever someone questions their beloved theory of how organisms came to be on this planet. There's many of them, and I shall go through them as a list. So without any further ado, let's get into this. Number 5. The many bad arguments made by evolutionists. 5A. One bad argument that they make is they demand credentials. And I call this the credentials fallacy. The tribe of academia demanding that everyone who wants to debate them or have a discussion with them have some type of certificate or degree just like they do. Very dishonest and very arrogant to say the least. The Wright brothers, Orville and Wilbur, they didn't have a deep understanding of aerodynamics. They didn't get any degrees in aerospace or how things move through the Earth's atmosphere. They built and repaired bicycles, just as an example. So the idea that someone needs to be in this giant university, owe tens of thousands of dollars in debt, have a degree, and spend years in a giant closed-off system of academia just to argue scientific points is absolutely absurd. That phenomenon reduces the number, or that criteria reduces the number of people that can have an actual debate about this type of topic. Here's the problem. Science doesn't care about your credentials, your degrees, your awards, the universities you attended and graduated from, the hierarchy, your tenure, your Nobel Prizes, or any of that nonsense. Science and the people who respect the scientific method demand a simple thing: that those with particular ideas follow the scientific method and use it to propose new ideas that will ultimately further our knowledge of the world around us. That's all we need. We don't need anything else. The basic process has no need for credentials or medals or certificates or any other absurd tribal nonsense of academia. Yes, academia is psychologically xenophobic, a psychologically xenophobic tribe. But again, I don't need your tribe or its approval to think critically or to pursue scientific ideas, period. 5B. Do you check the credentials of those that you agree with? When people who agree with evolution speak up about it and state their opinion about evolution and how they think it's correct, people such as Neil deGrasse Tyson or Bill Nye or Stephen Hawking, do the evolutionists, do they question these guys' credentials? Are they ever asked about the credentials do people ever challenge or question their study of biology? Or do they get their background checked when it comes to them studying things like psychology, physiology, anatomy, chemistry, biochemistry, geology, etc.? Do you evolutionists check their credentials in those things, in those different fields? Or do you blindly agree with their sentiments because they're well-known people that automatically agree with your idea? Sounds like a double standard. Question the credentials of people that challenge you, but don't question the credentials of people that agree with you. Interesting. 5C. Now, there are counter-evolutionists out there, many of which don't argue their points very well. Evolutionists see this and assume that those of us who challenge evolution as a theory don't understand what we're saying. Wrong. To assume that we're all stupid or ignorant, or we're all religious fundamentalists, or we know not what we speak of. because many of us may not articulate our points very well. It is extremely bigoted, ill thought out, and quite frankly, very stupid and immature. It is not fair, ethical, or even safe to assume that no one who counters evolution as a theory can argue it just because you've met a few counter-evolutionists who aren't very articulate. To put it more simply, there are people with correct ideas that cannot argue, and there are people with incorrect ideas that can argue, and there are people out there who have very, very bad, some of the worst ideas, who can argue their ideas better than most people. Understand, there is a balance there. 5D, ad hominem attacks. This is obvious. If you're going to go ahead and change what we said and then argue against that instead of arguing against what we actually said, then you guys definitely need to start quoting your dissenters verbatim. You need to start actually looking at what people say and arguing that instead of using your ad hominem straw men. Don't do that. Straw men, ad hominems, not acceptable if you're going to actually debate this. So instead of paraphrasing what we say and taking us out of context, please actually make sure you listen to what we actually say when we challenge the evolutionary idea, please. 5E, interrupting. Constantly speaking over people while they're trying to make their point is really just a form of bullying at a surface level, and on a deeper level is a clever way to drown out what it is that the person countering you is saying. So that way, you don't have to actually disprove them at all. Very cowardly, very dishonest, and overly aggressive. People need to learn to listen to the argument, then challenge it, not just scream at it or scream over the person that's making it. 5F, laughing. Laughing at an argument is another coward's way out. In fact, I think I've heard this before, that usually if someone's going to laugh, especially a nervous laugh, that's usually a sign of fear, that they're afraid of something. But let me continue. To laugh is to belittle a statement and put on this air that that person's idea that's challenging you is so profoundly stupid that it's laughable and not worth challenging. Unfortunately, this is another slick way to keep you from arguing your claims, because deep down you don't know how to do that. Again, you may believe in something, that doesn't mean you can argue it very well. So you might stick with some of these tactics. No matter how preposterous the idea is, ideally, we need to stay calm, stick with the facts, be able to show and prove our arguments, and very respectfully show how the person we're arguing with is wrong. We should be so patient and so ready to debate and argue in a mature way that yes, even flat earthers deserve the respect of you dismantling their claims piece by piece with evidence, as opposed to just laughing at them. And yes, I know it's very tempting to laugh at flat earthers, but even they have to have their ridiculous statement broken down piece by piece and disproven, not just laughed at, as tempting as that may be. Evolutionists need to be able to do this with counter-evolutionists and vice versa. 5G, attacking a person and or how they present the argument. Don't do this. Instead of attacking the argument itself, too many people, they do this. They attack you instead of challenging what you say. Again, evolutionists, if you're going to have an argument with us who challenge the idea of evolution, you need to focus on what's being said and listen closely to what is being said. Don't focus so much on how we're saying something or who we are. Another way to look at it. Look at the substance, not the delivery. Argue against the substance, not the delivery. 5H. Accusing a counter-evolutionist of being a creationist / religious / spiritual person. Let me break something down to you. You may not be aware of this, but it's true. Not everyone who questions evolution is into religion. You have to get outside of this false left-right paradigm. And if counter-evolutionists are those things, then that does not automatically count them out of the argument. So again, someone who counters evolution, someone who doesn't believe in evolution, someone who is challenging the evolutionary hypothesis or the evolutionary theory. They're not always religious. And if they are, that doesn't mean they can't argue. Very simple. They're not invalidated. Again, one must focus on the argument, not the person making the argument. Again, the substance, not the delivery. 5I. If you don't agree with the evolutionary theory, it's because you're not well educated about the theory. That's another fallacy. Sorry, but many people who challenge evolution actually have to study it to a great degree in order to understand the theory and therefore its flaws. Constantly assuming that we didn't study evolution or we don't understand what evolution is comes across as another straw man fallacy. 5J. Demanding another explanation. Okay, let me make this very clear. And I've said this in other videos, so I'm going to keep repeating this so that way it sinks in. We who counter evolution, we don't need to provide another explanation. We just need to challenge your explanation, evolution, for how things got to be what they are and how they are on planet Earth. I stated this in the previous video, and I'll state it again. We logically cannot prove a negative reality. We can only accept a negative reality, as in a reality where something that did not happen. We logically can prove a positive reality, or we can challenge someone else's assertion of a positive reality, as in a reality where something did happen. Or in other words, innocent until proven guilty. If evolution is indeed a thing, if it is a real phenomenon, then it's you evolutionists who have to show and prove that it is indeed a real phenomenon. You're the ones asserting that it's absolutely a fact. Therefore, you must show and prove. We, on the other side, we're just questioning it because we're not fully convinced of its validity. It can only go that way. It can't go any other way when it comes to arguing logic and three-dimensional reality. 5K. Another fallacy, and I quote, "It doesn't have to explain the origin of life," fallacy, unquote. Okay. Disconnecting the origin of life from how life changed over time is a huge fallacy. The origin of life has to be tied to the transitions of life, and you cannot separate the two. You cannot ignore how a child is conceived, but then focus on how the child grows and matures. You cannot ignore how a book is authored, but then focus on how the book is read. You cannot focus on how the rain falls if you don't also see where the rain came from. These things are symbiotically linked. In order to truly understand something, you have to understand its origin, its existence, and its eventual demise. Only then do you truly understand what that particular thing and or phenomenon truly is. If you can focus on one aspect of something and ignore the other aspect within the realm of science, then you're being either dishonest, very compartmentalized in your thinking, or you're willfully ignorant about what life actually is on this planet and how it came to be. 5I. Question to the evolutionists. Have you ever actually read Charles Darwin's work on evolution? I wonder how many people who believe in evolution have ever actually read one page of Darwin's work. Very interesting. 5M. Consensus means absolutely nothing in science. A majority of scientists agreeing or disagreeing on something does not prove nor disprove a particular phenomenon, and it never will. That's strictly political, that's not scientific. For instance, in the 1800s, there was a consensus that certain types of people were not fully human. It was a consensus hundreds of years ago that the earth was the center of the universe and all things in the sky were smaller objects revolving around the earth. Those two things had a consensus. These were things agreed upon by both early scientists and laymen in the majority. But these were not scientifically accurate, now were they? Consensus means nothing when it comes to looking at reality scientifically. Evidence, observation, measurements, experiments, facts, They are what matters when it comes to the scientific method and trying to understand the reality around us, not consensus. Consensus is useless. And 5N. Evolutionists, you all tend to complain about being tired of the debate that it seems like some of you rarely ever get into. For all the evolutionists out there who claim to be so tired and are or bored with the debate about whether evolution does indeed exist, let me ask you this. How many times have you ever actually debated over evolution's validity? How many times have you defended the evolutionary theory as scientifically valid? How many times have you actually argued against a person who didn't believe that evolution was valid? Or are you just claiming that you're tired of doing something that you're not actually doing? Maybe you're just tired of hearing people say it, but you're not actually tired of arguing against it because you're not actually arguing against it. Just something to think about. That's all for now. Please like, subscribe, share, and donate to support this channel. You all have a nice day. I'm out. Peace.